Hi guys, welcome back to SwitchUp and to day 2 of our 12 days of SwitchUp or 12 days of Christmas lineup. This time we're going to look at hidden gems. There have been some great games out this year and Glen and I have picked out 10 of what we think are the best and potentially most hidden.
Yeah, absolutely right. It's probably best to say that we've done a fair few of these lists in the past, so what we'll do is we'll stick some links to previous ones in the top pinned comment in case a game you're expected to see on here isn't. Chances are it's on one of those.
Awesome. Right, what are the hidden gems? Well, let's find out. First up then, we've got a game called Snowrunner, and I actually changed out another game to put this in the list. Glen probably raised an eyebrow, but thankfully we're remote so I couldn't tell. Glen, you haven't played Snowrunner, have you?
No, I've played Mud Runner, which is, I'm assuming, is the same series. Would I be right?
Yeah, it's from the Spin Tire series.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, so I like that game. Very different to a game I'd usually play, but quite therapeutic in a way.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's probably one of the most relaxing games that I've got, that I own and actively play. It's a strange one because despite appearances, you look at these trucks and let's be honest, it seems pretty nerdy. Yeah. It's actually quite it feels a bit more like an RPG. You've got this open world. They have the they're like watchtowers, a bit like in Assassin's Creed and other games like that.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, it's got like the watchtower system. So once you go to the watchtower, that will then unlock that area and all the tasks within it.
Oh, nice. So what is the basic premise then? Is that you drive a variety of different trucks and have to fulfill missions, is that right?
Yeah, it sounds even nerdier when someone else says it. But each map has a scenario. So like the first one's a flooded city, and then you gradually unlock different sections. It's actually got massive stages. Like I didn't realise initially, but there's actually 4 huge areas for each main stage. And there's 4 stages, so yeah, there's loads to do, and you can flip between the different ones. You don't have to just stick with the first one until you've unlocked the rest, which is nice.
Okay.
Yeah, so
I suppose it's important to say it's not. Some people might be expecting like an arcadey bouncing about in the snow. It's very realistic in terms of handling, isn't it?
Yeah, if you go bouncing off into the snow, you're going to stay there.
Yeah, you're going to get stuck there forever. Yeah,
exactly right. But there's an online mode as well, which is really, again, strangely compelling, having a group of you on there doing this stuff.
So you just team up to try and do the missions and whatnot, do you?
Yeah, it literally just puts you, imagine like GTA, except to the single player, and you're all in the single player together.
Yeah, that's a good game. So that's a good shout as well, something nice and different.
Exactly right.
We're going to move on to something that's come out quite recently next. One that I did want to review, I just never got round to it. It's a game called The Wild at Heart. Do you know of this one at all?
I saw the eShop trailer and it looked lovely.
It does look lovely. Let's start with the art style. It's got that kind of classic, what I would call kind of 1970s, 1980s storybook feel to it. Like books from people like Anthony Brown, people like that.
Yes.
Really does remind me of that kind of era, being a kid again. But in terms of the gameplay, it's quite an interesting mix. It's almost like a Pikmin game in some respects. You find these creatures called Spritelings, and they'll follow you and they'll help you out with the quests, like you need a certain amount of them to carry something, and you have to go and fulfill missions to try and help the forest people. You're basically a young boy that's run away from home and you get lost, and you're trying to help the forest people fight the badness, basically. There's like I can't think what it's called now, but it's like a darkness that comes at night, and everyone goes inside because, you can't be out when the dark's about. But it's just it has that kind of grim fairy tale feel to it, and a really interesting blend of gameplay styles.
Oh, nice. So I have no clue what this one's about,
Yeah, it's definitely worth playing. I really did wish I'd got round to reviewing it. And just to give you some sort of idea of how highly I rate it, one of these 12 days of Christmas videos will be our favourite games of the year. And whilst it didn't make it, it was bloody close to taking that 5th place.
Yeah. So is the darkness, is that actually like an entity? Is it an actual creature that stalks you, or how does it work?
Yeah. So there's a creature that comes after you. You're completely defenseless. If it gets your Spritelings, you'll lose them, kind of like Pikmin. And it has that compelling element of not wanting them to die. It's not like in some games, so like RTS games, where you build an army and you have collateral damage. The thing about Pikmin that I always loved was how much you cared about the little creatures. And this has that similar sort of style to it.
Okay, I've definitely heard a few people talking about it on Twitter. Chicken Perm mentioned
Yeah.
it as I believe as a really good game. It's a shame we didn't
Yeah,
get
I
a
was
review.
very pleasantly surprised. It was one of those that I kind of, you know what it's like with our schedule, you pick one up and you think, you know, have I got time to get this one in? And I just didn't have time, but it was so good that I'm really pleased that we've got a chance here to give it some airtime, so to speak, you know?
Yeah, exactly right. All right, what have we got up next?
Next one is one that you reviewed, actually. That's Fuga Melodies of Steel.
Okay, I remember this one. This was the it's like Advance Wars.
Yeah, that's the one. And it had that really interesting art style, didn't it?
It did, yeah. This was, again, we've had a lot of really good games that we almost didn't expect, you know?
Yeah.
Who made this one? I think it was a company called CyberConnect 2. I think they developed and published it. But it was, I guess it was standard in some sense. And I know it's a time when I think all of us are a little bit fatigued with roguelike games. So that almost wasn't in its favour. But it was set during France during World War II, and you had like these animal creatures, didn't you? And yeah, it was one of those titles where nothing was exceptional, but everything was really well done, if that makes sense.
Didn't it also have quite an interesting mechanic where, because they're children, aren't there? They have children in this huge like tank, and their relationships kind of helped make your defences stronger, or if they didn't quite get on as well, that would affect how well you did. Is that right?
Yeah, so they had synergies. So certain ones had synergies with others. Like there's a couple that are brother and sister, so they can do special moves together. But you can improve that by building their relationship.
Okay.
And then if they're not as synergized, is that a word? Synergized?
Sounds decent.
Sounds great,
right.
doesn't it?
We'll go with it.
If they're not as synergized with others, you can spend time in between battles, actually making them talk and chat, and it would then unlock their memories, which was quite cool.
Sometimes you find mechanics like that sound quite interesting, but then drag the gameplay down. Was it like that, or was it?
Well, it was optional.
Oh, okay. Well, that's all right then, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was like it didn't hinder you if you didn't do it, but it did benefit if you decide to go for it.
Yeah. I seem to remember this game come out in the same week or around about the same time as Ease 9 and Monster Hunter Stories 2, so it kind of had some tough competition, you know?
Yeah, it did. It was one of those, as many of these will be, where they've fallen just at the wrong time, really.
Yeah, falling through the cracks of the eShop sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, next one then, we're going to talk about a game called Void Bastards. So Void Bastards is an interesting one. I've played a bit of this. I bought this a couple of months ago now and I took it on holiday with me, and you reviewed this one, so you might know a bit more about it than me. But from what I played, it's a roguelite again, a first-person shooter, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where you go onto derelict ships and you have to find parts to then build better weapons, and then you go onto the next ship and you kind of repeat the process. But the thing that made it that bit more enjoyable really was that dry humour that we've mentioned a fair few times about certain games.
Definitely. I said it was quite a British humour, but actually it's an Australian dev team, which is interesting.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't realise that. So it's an Australian team.
Well, so to be fair, I mean, you know, the Brits and the Aussies have got, you know, quite a few links, haven't they? I'm sure that humour transcends the oceans.
Yeah, I think it does. And this was a really, again, it's another roguelite. It's another interesting take. And it's another one of our games that's from Humble. I think we've got about 3 or 4. They're another one a bit like Devolver, who seem to pick correctly, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
But they said they were inspired by System Shock 2 and BioShock. I can see the System Shock 2 a tiny bit, but honestly, I don't think it's really... Personally, I don't think it's like those games.
No.
It's fair.
No, I'm surprised you gave those or they gave those as examples, to be honest, yeah.
Yeah, I don't really see that at all. I'd say it's more inspired by Red Dwarf.
Yeah, I'd get that. You got those like the talking machines and the robots that have that kind of quirky sense of humour and give you a bit of lip as you talk to them and whatnot.
Definitely. But yeah, as Glenn said, it's a first-person roguelike game where you navigate your ship through a solar system. You get to choose your path, and it's a risk and reward, so it will tell you what's on this ship, and then you can decide whether it's worth going for it. Sometimes you know, the scenario slightly changes and there's a shop and things. It's pretty standard, but I mean it's quite unique in the way it's designed, and there's also quite a heavy stealth element. I know you're not a huge stealth fan, Glenn, and I love stealth.
Yeah, I don't think I think the stealth is what let me down, because I kept getting caught and just absolutely obliterated by things. But But what I did like about, and I think we mentioned this about a game possibly in the first of these, where although it is a roguelite, a lot of your progress carries over.
Yeah.
In terms of like the blueprints you find and the resources that you acquire. So it never feels like it's pointless when you die, you know?
Yeah, and I'd say that's probably what you just said there is probably the most important element for any new roguelite game to think about.
Yeah.
Isn't
yeah,
it?
I'd agree. Okay, well, let's move on then. The next one, I'm going to be honest, mate, I've never even bloody heard of it, so this is all yours. But you've put down that you want to talk about Eldest Souls.
Yes. I mean, that's a hidden gem right there. You don't even know what it is.
Nope.
Do you know what I mean? And this got in the 90s.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, this was really impressive. This was one of those Souls-likes that it kind of annoys me now. I think it's just a bit cringy that they feel they have to use Souls in the title of every game.
Yeah.
You know, but it's essentially a boss rush. Well, it's a Souls-like without the in-between enemies, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah.
So you know, you had your go on Dark Souls and you're fighting all those little enemies before you fight the big ones.
Yep.
It just takes out that, and instead it fills in little story bits. So you might find a book or you might find a scroll, and it just fleshes the story out. And it also kind of removes the annoyance of losing to a boss and then having to push through a whole stage.
Oh, you know what? As you're talking, I'm having kind of flashbacks of this game. Is it pixel art style?
Yeah. Pixel art.
Okay. Yeah, it's just dawned on me what game you're talking about, but I haven't played it. But I do know the one you mean now, so that's something. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is. It's a boss. I can't speak today. It's a boss rush Souls-like,
right.
And it was just really well executed. The boss fights themselves were. Sometimes you feel like you have to die to learn their mechanics. You know, you feel like you have to.
Yeah.
It doesn't
is that
feel
good,
like that.
Or is that bad?
No, I think
that's a good thing.
I see that as a negative. I think if the game can't teach you enough without having to make you die, then for me that's a negative. But this doesn't do that.
Right. Oh, good.
Yeah. This is just right. Here's the mechanics you'll need. Be good enough. and it telegraphs things, you know.
What about for people that are not maybe huge into Dark Souls, or not even not into it, but maybe are a bit apprehensive of buying something that's going to frustrate the hell out of them? Would this be a game to try?
Absolutely not.
No, so you do have to have that hardcore, not hardcore in the sense of, you know, but you have to be willing to punish yourself to enjoy it, yeah?
Yeah, it is. It is in the same way as, you know, the first 3 hours of Dark Souls for most people. I mean, you had a great run. For most people, the first 3 hours are horrible, just dying fest until you learn it. This is that, really. You'll die a load on the first boss and be like, why am I even doing this to myself? But you'll get the mechanics and be like, oh man, this is glorious. So yeah, it's a very particular flavour, if you will.
One for masochists, yeah?
Yeah, for me, yeah.
Yeah, for you, yeah, that's it. Okay, all right, let's move on to the next one. This is one I want to talk about, actually. This is quite possibly, having looked down the list here, my favourite. Wild at Heart is a close second, actually. This is Xenocrisis. Have you played Xenocrisis?
I'm trying to get a picture of it up now because I can't remember.
Right, well, let me talk about it and it might come back to you. Obviously now, you know, we talk a lot on the channel about our tastes and our favourite sort of genres in games. As you know, I'm a huge fan of arcadey type experiences, always have been. And this is very much like something like Smash TV, you know, Super Smash TV, or even going back further than that, something like Robotron, you know, where you're in a small arena and you've got enemies coming at you from every which way and you have to try and defeat all the enemies, and they'll be dropping weapons and ammo and all sorts as you're going along, and you have to try and survive and get into the next room. And it is just so unbelievably compelling. You know, you'll die and you'll keep trying, and it's probably the best of these sort of games that I've played since I played Super Smash TV. I nearly said Super Smash Bros. There. Super Smash TV on the Super Nintendo all those years ago. You know, it just does it so incredibly well, and it mixes it with like an Alien vibe. You get, you know, the xenomorphs from Alien. You can definitely see an influence there. The characters, there's a man and a lady. The man looks like the character that Bill Paxton played in Aliens, I forget his name now, and the lady looks like Jill Valentine from Resident Evil. So you've got all those like pop culture references, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just a very visceral, high action game. Quick blast, you'll die, you'll have fun, and you'll come back to it later. And I love those sort of games. Yeah,
I mean, this is you all over. I'm just looking at pictures now. It's actually reminding me a little bit that we really must get that Chaos Engine re-release, you know?
Yeah.
It's given me that
But
kind of vibe.
I played this first on the Evercade. You know, the little handheld system, the Evercade.
Oh, yeah.
This got a release on that, and I played it on that first and thoroughly enjoyed it on there, but that doesn't have 2 sticks, and obviously this is a twin stick shooter, so playing it on the Switch is perfect. You know, it works perfectly well, and it's such a good game. I would, anyone that loves arcade experiences or just high action, wants a bit of fun, isn't bothered about making huge amounts of progress, have a look at this one for sure.
Yes, Hudson.
Yes, yeah, that's his name. Yeah, I was going to say Hicks, but that's not. That's Michael Bain is his name. That was his character, wasn't it?
There you go.
All right, let's have a talk about Chris Tales. This is one of your picks.
Mm-hmm.
It's a turn-based RPG, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Did you play any of this? I think you got this. You bought this, didn't you?
No, I didn't buy this one. I think I might have watched you play some of it whilst you were reviewing it. This is one you reviewed, and it had that time mechanic, didn't it, where you could go into the past and tweak something, or you could use an item in the future. Is that right?
Yeah, do you know what? This is a prime example of a precursor to a masterpiece kind of game, if that makes sense.
Right, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
It's got some mechanics in there that I've never seen done so well. Like, for example, some of the quest lines, it will split the screen into 3 parts, so you can see the past, the present and the future. And those little, you know, in every JRPG you have the side quests, but let's be honest, they're meaningless and they're just there to level you up. But here you would literally see the effect in the future of what you've just done.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, so like on one of the towns you enter, on the right hand side it's completely flooded, and through a side quest eventually that will be okay.
Right.
Yeah, so it's just, for me, that was brilliant. So what it didn't do very well were the battles.
Yeah, I was just going to say that actually. I was going to say, I think I remember talking about this one in our JRPG list, and you did mention the battles. A lot of random battles, is that right?
Yeah. Why?
Yeah. No, I agree. We had the same thing recently with the Pokemon remake that didn't update that particular feature. I don't know. It's like something that's clinging on from the past, isn't it?
It's such a lazy mechanic, isn't it? I mean, I'm sure there'll be some people that maybe like it, but
I'm sure there are, because it is a staple of the genre. But I think we both agree that it's something that just doesn't have as much of a place anymore. You know, busy lives. A lot of gamers these days are adults, and it just drags experiences down for me.
Yeah, totally agree.
But no, a good game though, from what you told me and from what I saw of you playing it, and I do like that time mechanic. It's definitely intriguing. I can't, other than maybe Chrono Trigger way back in the day, I can't think of another game that uses anything like that, to be honest.
Yeah, it did it well. I guess it did it well enough. And I hope the sequels. I hope the sequel's an improvement on a few of the other mechanics.
Nice. Okay. Right. What about Unmetal then? This is another one that we've reviewed on the channel. This is like the MSX version of Metal Gear, isn't it? So way before Solid came along and changed things up, you had that top-down stealth approach to the gameplay, and this is like a homage to that, isn't it? Yeah,
basically that's it in a nutshell, and splice that with Hot Shots Part 1 and 2, and you've got Unmetal. Yeah, it's full of jokes. Some people might find it a bit cringy. Personally, from the era that I grew up in, it was very, very funny. It's not very politically correct in places, and I was okay with that.
It's funny, isn't it? Because games like that first Metal Gear, I'm sure they're the sort of games that, if you ask people, you know, what would you like to see on the Switch? What if an old game could return from the past? What would you like to see? I reckon games like that would get a fair few votes. So it's almost quite surprising that it took so long for someone to jump on that and make their own version, you know?
Yeah, I'd also say it's probably quite a difficult thing to do right without getting a lot of hate from fans, you know?
In respect of copying the original?
In respect of even paying homage, like it has to be done well, and it's done really well here. It's not just like a cheap, you know, let's just do Metal Gear Solid, release it and try and get some cash.
Yeah.
It's really good. There's loads of references. There's even a reference to M. Bison in there, which you'd enjoy.
Oh, nice. Did you know that M. Bison isn't actually the name of the final boss in the Japanese version of Street Fighter?
Oh, really? What's he called?
Well, you know, you've got M. Bison, you've got Bullrog, and you've got, is it Vega?
Yes.
The one with the mask on. Their 3 names became confused over with the translation into the Western versions.
Okay.
So M. Bison. Well, I say confused. I don't think that's actually true. M. Bison was actually the boxer, and I think it was meant to be a little take on Mike Tyson.
Right.
So when it came over, I don't think they wanted any lawsuits, so they switched around some of the names.
Okay, that makes sense.
So yeah, a little useless piece of knowledge for you there.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Right, a couple left then. The next one is Rising Hell. Now this one, someone else reviewed for us on the channel, and that was Jeffrey over at the Indie Gaming Guild. He did a great job for us. But I've played a huge amount of this one myself, just personally. And again, it just fits my personal taste so well. So it is another roguelite, but this one is quite interesting that you have to move upwards. You know, you start at the bottom of this tower, and you need to make your way up through the levels, defeating a huge amount of enemies. It's a pixel art game. It's really that lovely sort of detailed pixel art that people will swear all 16-bit games look like, but actually you go back and play them and realise no, not at all. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's got like a metal soundtrack. You know, it's got that kind of vibe to it, and it's just a very cool game. Really, really a lot of fun. Like, I really enjoyed this one.
I'm trying to picture it. I can't. Has it got boss fights in it as well?
Yes, so you go up the tower. You're in hell, I believe. I mean, it's called Rising Hell, obviously. But you get to like the top of the tower or the next like intersection, and there's like a boss room where you have to take on the boss, and then you defeat that boss. And you'll find shops up as you go up as well, and you can upgrade. You know, it's very standard fare.
Yeah.
It's funny sometimes with roguelites. You kind of mentioned it a minute ago. One of the other ones we've just spoken about. Sometimes just that little tweak is enough.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, exactly right.
It doesn't have to be reinventing the genre or reinventing the wheel. Just turning it on its head a little bit sometimes is enough to make it feel fresh. And this is definitely a good example of that.
Nice. All right.
Right, we've got one left, and this is another one that I haven't played. I know of it. I know quite a lot about it, but I've just not played it. This is Dusk.
Yes. Man, you should play this one.
So this is another one that we did want to review, and we just didn't get round to. So again, this is kind of its moment in the spotlight on our channel at least. So do you want to have a little chat about Dusk?
Have a little chat about Dusk. Comes at the end of the day. Hang on, is it the morning or the evening? Flip, I've just lost track now. Yeah, I have reviewed this, actually. It was in our review roundup video the other day.
That's right. No, I do apologise. Yes, you stuck it in there the other day. So yeah, it has got some coverage.
It's another one where, and it's got a bit of Lovecraftian thing in there, so you'd quite like that. It's set
I
around.
didn't realise that. That's always good to hear. I do like a bit of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's set around some Lovecraftian ruins. Yeah, and there's a strange government military base, and in you go. You know, the story's complete.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it's all about that shooting action, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, this is like 60 frames per second. It's like motion controls. It's lovely. It just feels really nice. And this was, I believe, and this is where your brain would come in handy. The one single developer called David Shemansky, I want to say. I'm going with it.
Okay.
Let me know in the comments. But yeah, it's one of those where someone has an idea of what they want to create, and then they spend far too long doing it, and it actually succeeds.
Yeah, no, exactly. Is it? I mean, obviously, it's kind of a throwback to the first-person shooters of old. Mm-hmm. And whenever anyone says that, the first game that comes to mind is Doom. But is this kind of more Hexen, would you say, or is Doom a good comparison? What would you say?
I'd say it's more Quake.
Quake is the one I was trying to think of as well. Sorry, yeah. So it's more along the lines of Quake, is it?
In terms of the feel, yeah, it's more Quake. Maybe it's like right in the middle between Doom and Quake. You know, it doesn't go quite as occult as Quake, but it's not as realistic as not realistic, but you know what I mean. It's not as that way. You can dual wield weapons, which is nice. That's always a nice touch.
That's always good in a first-person shooter, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And it's always the same, isn't it, with these games? You play them, and you get to the end of the stage, and it's like you found 1 out of 20 secrets.
Yeah, it's funny. Like with Doom back in the day, kind of just walking into walls, trying to hope that you'd find one that would open or something like that. Those silly things you used to do, you know. Yeah,
I totally do. There's also, which is a bit of a shame on the Switch version, there's no multiplayer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that is a shame. That is a shame.
Yeah, because that's, I mean, in these kinds of games, that's what you want, isn't it? Go online and just destroy people.
Yeah, all day long. Lovely. Okay, well, there's 10 games. There's 10 hidden gems that we very much enjoyed over the course of at least this year, if not maybe some are a little bit older than that, but most of these are quite recent releases, aren't they? At least over the course of 2021, I would say. As I said, we have reviewed, or we have done a fair few of these sort of lists, so we will put a few links down in the top pin comment. You might find a few more that you've never heard of, but the comment section, for me at least, in these sort of videos, it's all about other people putting their nominations in, you know. I mean, by all means tell us if you don't agree with one of these picks, but at the same time be constructive and stick a few down there that you would recommend, because that's how we find good games, isn't it?
Definitely. Yeah, I'm just waiting for you to say the see ya bit at the end.
Well, it's not going to happen, mate. You know that. It's not going to happen. On the day that Satan skates to work on his ice skates, maybe then. Maybe then.
Dave, insert that picture. Make it happen.
Okay, well, like Mark said at the beginning, this is the second of what will hopefully become 12 leading up to Christmas. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, stick a like on it. That would be nice. And there will be another one out, fingers crossed, tomorrow. Lovely.
All right, nice one. For all things Switch, all the time. Oh, thanks to our patrons. You guys are amazing. Keep it Switch up. Cheers, guys. See ya!